Good morning and welcome to Talent Tuesday. For those of you either watching on Zoom or Facebook Live, I am Larry Gottlieb, Managing Director for the Robert Martin Company. But in my spare time, I'm helping to lead the Talent Attraction and Retention Initiative for the Business Council of Westchester, the county's leading voice for business. And I am truly honored and excited to welcome you to the third session in our five-part educational series, The New Rules of Attraction, Finding, Cultivating, and Keeping Talent. Thank you to our sponsors for today's discussion, Simone Development, Vail Industries, Westchester County Office of Economic Development, Balancing Life's Issues, and of course, Westchester's ultimate headhunter, the Headless Horseman, our silent spokesperson for 2023, which we have declared at the BCW as the Year of Talent. If you've listened to our last panel, which featured three top marketing and HR experts, then you must have been furiously writing down a lot of tips and techniques for attracting talent by rebranding and repositioning your organization. That was moderated by Dr. Marcia Gordon. It was a fantastic discussion. From the concept of re-recruiting to new communication tools for frontline management, the information shared during our last session provided a compass for truly helping businesses owners navigate through the rough waters of talent attraction and retention. Now, when fishing for talent, marketing and branding are clearly important when casting your line out into the marketplace, but what are you using for bait to reel them in? For many prospective employees, the bait is the benefits that employees offer. In fact, Forbes Insider recently commissioned a poll of over 1,000 employed American workers and 1,000 employers and found that 40% of employers believe workers leave their jobs to find employment that offers better benefits. And in a win for animals, over 30% of 18 to 41-year-olds are most concerned with having pet insurance available as a benefit. However, the area where employers and employees seem to agree the most, nearly 50% on both sides of the coin named achieving work-life balance as their top priority. And that brings us to today's discussion, which is building a healthier relationship, attracting and cultivating talent with the benefits that matter most. From the must-have benefits of health insurance to the emerging demands for expanded mental health care, greater work schedule flexibility, and pet insurance, competing for talent in today's challenging marketplace requires employers to rethink their benefit packages, replacing a one-size-fits-all approach with a more personalized, comprehensive approach. To offer their insights on today's topic, we have pulled together a fantastic panel. And how do I know that? Because I pulled them together. A fantastic panel of benefits, human resources, and work-life balance experts and executives. And so we have with us this morning, Jamie Schutzer, Senior Partner with JDM Benefits, in addition to being the board chair for the Business Council of Westchester, which alone can be a full-time job. His career in healthcare spans over 20 years, has included leadership roles in employee benefits and insurance sales. Welcome, Jamie. Wendy Woolner, founder, president, and CEO of Balancing Life's Issues. As founder of BLI, she's built and oversees a network of over 1,800 trainers who bring work-life balance programs to corporations, not-for-profit organizations, employee assistance programs, and educational institutions. Tanika Natal, Director of HR and Administration for Cuddy and Feder LLP, with nearly 20 years of frontline HR experience at Cuddy and Feder. Tanika is an impassioned speaker on critical HR issues. I've heard her speak before. It's wonderful, such as diversity, equity, inclusion. And we are very, very honored to have her speak with us on this very topic last November. So we're thrilled to have her back. And finally, Jason Boltax, Vice President of HR for ENT and Allergy Associates. Jason brings to us years of transformative HR experience with a number of global firms, as he currently leads ENT's HR team, providing guidance on workforce-related matters to over 1,300 employees and counting. Jason, it's spring to allergists. That's like tax season for accountants. So thank you for joining us. And thank you all for joining us this morning. And so let's get started with the conversation. Jamie, I'm going to start with you. Your firm works with a wide variety of businesses and organizations of all sizes and structures, from a 30,000-foot perspective, what are you hearing from employers and or employees out in the marketplace when it comes to their benefits packages? Any data or studies you can share with us today to kind of set the table for the discussion this morning?
Yes, thank you, Larry. And where I'll start with my with that question is what I think you just phrased as must-have health insurance. And I think any employer out there have been trying to manage their healthcare costs, over the last, several decades, which has been a challenge. And although you turn on the news and all you hear about is inflation and interest rates, and that seems to be getting all the press these days. But inflation related to the healthcare industry is not new. Based on our healthcare trend guidance, which we updated in the fall of 2022, preliminary annual trend factors for 2023 is combined at 7.5%, which breaks down to 7% for medical and about 9% for prescription drugs. So, right off the bat, you're talking about managing something that has been going up for the last several years at a very high clip and is now expected to go up an additional 7.5% for 2023. And what's really driving that, there are a lot of factors, but one in particular is the demand for specialty drugs is fueling the pharmacy costs. And based on some data analytics research that we've done, just one little snippet of that, there's been a 43% increase in members taking approved weight loss medication. And the interesting fact about that is about 45% of those taking that medication do not have diabetes, which is what they're on the market for. So all that is fueling, that's just one example, but all that is fueling higher costs on the pharmacy side and also on the medical side. But with that said is, how are employers dealing with those high costs? And what we've saw in the past is more, kind of a balancing act, plan design changes, shifting costs to employees. But this year in particular, and even last year, what we're seeing is employers are really trying to absorb those premium increases rather than just pass them along. So employers are looking to us to get creative, find solutions, strategies that are going to help them, mitigate those cost increases and help kind of keep benefits intact and keep their employees' costs intact. Another is mental health concerns. Not new. I think you had mentioned it also in your opening remarks. In addition to substance abuse, we see they're rising for employees and their family members. And access to mental health providers is a challenge. And that's what we're hearing a lot from. That's probably the number one issue we hear from our clients. And according to the Association of American Medical Colleges, more than 150 million people live in federally designated mental health professional shortage areas. So there's definitely a shortage to access. And those also providers are also choosing not to participate with health insurance networks. So a lot of that comes out of network and becomes very costly. So what are employers doing is they're leveraging virtual therapy to try to leverage the gaps there, virtual being like telemedicine, but for mental health. And last but not least is, employers are dealing with a multi-generational workforce. I think I count there's 4 generations now in the workforce. Don't ask me to name them because put me on the spot, I'll probably blow that. But and there is no one size fits all approach, from baby boomers, to Gen Z. Employers are needing to get creative to offer new options to really meet the needs of those 2 generations and the 2 in the middle. So things like lifestyle spending accounts, we're seeing more interest there where employees are getting a bucket of money and kind of spending it on what's important to them. Voluntary benefits is another one where, meeting employees where they are in their lives. And last but not least is infertility benefits are lacking, depending on the size of your organization and depending on the funding of your health insurance plan. There are certain benefits that are available to larger organizations that are fully insured, But according to our 2002 Healthcare and Employee Benefits Benchmarking Survey, only 41% of employers offer medical plans which include coverage for infertility treatment. So, mental health, infertility, kind of 1-2 on the issues that we hear. And our job is to try to solve those problems and deliver, what employers are looking for their employees.
Thank you, Jamie. So certainly a sign of the times, right? Weight gain, mental health challenges, and employers in a way being asked to take on some of the problems, society's problems, right, through benefits. Very interesting. Thank you. So
Thank you.
so Jason, as an employer, I want to go to you. So ENT Analogy Associates certainly reflects a business with a wide spectrum of employees and needs, and why I asked you to be on the panel this morning because of that spectrum. I mean, you've got frontline desk associates greeting clients when they walk through your door. Very often, as I said, jokingly, but half jokingly, certainly this time of year in distress. And then from an employee spectrum perspective, you also go all the way up to very highly degreed healthcare professionals. Certainly, I know you hire the best of the best from across the country, and every function in between. We forget about those back office support positions, which help all those folks do what they do in terms of IT and other support programs. So can you provide us with a bit of a snapshot of your benefits program? And I'm particularly interested in those items you feel that are effective when it comes to recruitment and employee retention.
Absolutely, certainly, and thanks, Larry. So at ENT Analogy, we take great pride in offering a comprehensive benefits program. It's critical to attracting talent and making sure that we retain the talent that we have. And we really are focused on the diverse needs of all of our employees because everybody's needs are different. So I'll give you a bit of an overview of some of the things that are included in our standard package. So like we mentioned before, the standard medical, dental, vision insurances are covered. We provide multiple options within each of those. So it's not just a one plan fits all. We offer life insurance and disability coverage, a 401k retirement plan with a profit sharing program. We offer a robust PTO program, paid time off. In talking about what Jamie mentioned about mental health, we have a strong employee assistance program to make sure that our staff have the resources they need when dealing with those types of issues. Flexible spending accounts, so opportunity for folks to save on pre-tax basis for their expenses for healthcare, dependent care. We offer transit benefits to help our employees with their commuting expenses. This year, we introduced a new financial wellness program that is focused on helping our employees really help them with their financial security and retirement planning. And the one that I guess is the most exciting is pet insurance. We do offer pet insurance, which I'm glad to hear is the leading top benefit that folks are looking for. Thanks, Jamie, on that one. But when it comes to recruitment and employee retention, a strong benefits program is essential, right? It's very competitive out there, and different companies across a variety of industries are doing exactly what we're doing. We're trying to create a program that is going to be not only competitive, but also meaningful. And so some of the things in addition to our standard benefit program that we really focused on and feel are really effective in the recruitment and retention of our employees is first, focusing on a competitive compensation. We strive to really offer competitive salaries and benefit programs to attract top talent. We spend a lot of time looking at the marketplace, looking at our competitors, because compensation is a top, I would say a top 5 in what folks look for in an organization. Often you'd think it would be number 1. It's not really number 1. There are other things that I think fill in the number 1 slot, things like trust and equity and camaraderie, where people want to feel like they're being treated fairly and they want to be able to come to an organization where they can have a meaningful experience. However, compensation is ranked in the top of what folks are looking for. And so we make sure to analyze this and look at it very closely to be able to offer competitive compensation. Career development opportunities are extremely important. I think what attract our new staff to come here, as well as retain our staff. When I arrived at ENT and Allergy just a few years ago, I was amazed to notice how many of our employees have worked here for 10, 15, 20, even 30 years and more. So ENT and Allergy prides itself in enabling people to have not just a job, but a career. And so we're very focused on those career development opportunities. The third is a commitment to learning and development. We really have a strong program around allowing employees to develop both on a compliance and a regulatory, as well as professional development. So we're constantly stressing and encouraging our folks to challenge themselves to grow both, to grow professionally. We can all always learn something new. You mentioned before about work-life balance. In the wake of the pandemic, as all of us know on this webinar, it's critically important, and we understand that importance. We tend to spend more time in our working than we do with our families, but that time that we have in our personal lives are equally and often more important. And so we offer flexible scheduling. We just redesigned our PTO policy to make it more user-friendly and accessible to our staff so that they have it at the times when they need it most. And it enables them to balance their time. In healthcare, it's challenging, right? Healthcare is not, a type of job that you can sit at home and be in front of a computer. And so our staff had been in the front lines since day one of this pandemic, but finding creative ways to create flexibility and let them know that work-life balance is critically important. We understand that has been something we've been focused on for the last few years. Providing employee support. We have strong EAP programs that we think really help differentiate in order to make sure that folks have the support they need, especially when they need it. And financial wellness is something that we have stressed critically in the last year. Given the way the markets have been, the fluctuation and volatility in the economy, what we're seeing in other industries around banking, we want to make sure that our employees have the support they need to make sure they have the financial security and they have the resources to think about that and to plan for the future in their retirement. So overall, the standard benefit programs and some of these other approaches that I mentioned to us feel like they are critically important in attracting and retaining our talent, because at the end of the day, everybody has their own diverse needs, and we feel like this sort of captures that.
Thank you, Jason. It's interesting you touch on something that I don't know if people are connecting the dots, but you talk about the benefits that you offer translating into employee loyalty and having those longtime employees, certainly key employees. And the other dot I would connect to that is it translates into customer loyalty. Myself, I am, full disclosure, a client of ENT, and the fact that I could go to the same doctor year after year after year. So if he left, maybe I would follow him to some other practice, or maybe I would say, I don't like the new person that came in. So there is a connection, a correlation between employee loyalty and sometimes what we forget, the connection to customer loyalty. So thank you for sharing that,
Absolutely.
Jason. Tanika, similar to Jason, you have a variety of support professionals at Cutting and Fader, all the way up to and including senior and managing partners in a variety of practice areas. So I'd love to hear about the benefits and policies you believe are a differentiator for your firm when it comes to recruitment and retaining employees at every level.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. And, thank you to all. I really appreciate being here and joining my fellow panelists in this discussion. And I echo a lot of what Jamie and Jason has said so far. It's very important for us to identify the needs of our people in the workplace at all levels in order to implement policies and benefits that will best serve diverse populations. At Cuddy and Fader, we spend considerable time examining our workforce through a lens of equity that enables us to consistently improve on our benefit strategy. So year over year, there's a drill for us. Additionally, we take into account what people are seeking as they explore, enter, or re-enter the workforce. As I look at the talent landscape, I recognize that prospective employees now more than ever, right, following the pandemic, are seeking benefits and options. We talk about pet insurance. We talk about elder care. You know, people want to care for their ailing parents now, infertility. I'd like to say that we hire for careers and not jobs. Therefore, being able to offer a comprehensive benefits package is paramount, not only attracting talent, but also in retaining our talent. So, you know, much of what you have said, much of what Jason and Jamie has said, you know, being able to identify what the needs of people are very important. And when an organization supports their people, then the people support the organization. So we have a very comprehensive and robust benefits package as well. It's very important for us, especially following the pandemic, that we focused on mental health. So we also ensure access to mental health resources. We have a full benefit package, medical and dental, PTO time. We're very flexible with regard to work-life balance. You know, we're not stringent on what people's needs are in terms of caring for their families and caring for themselves. So we spend a considerable amount of time making sure that we respond to our people inside and outside the workplace.
Yeah, and it's interesting the mention of this first time that elder care came up. I know of folks of my age, a certain age, sandwich generation, feeling really sandwiched in the needs of having children, as well as the needs of taking care of parents. Have gone through that twice, and the elder care, I think it's both sides of the dumbbell, right? It's the child care and the elder care are both becoming far more important. I loved the mention of equity for all employees. I think benefits is the area where there's the universal application in a way of policy is through benefits, and so that no one feels someone is gaining or getting a greater benefit from the frontline employee or the person who may be at an admin level all the way up to senior executive. There's a certain democracy to it. So I love that as well. And you brought up work-life balance, and boy, that's a great segue to Wendy, right? Wendy, I want to flip the script with you. Your company is founded on the philosophy of balancing life's issues. It's literally the name of your company, which I love. You reach over 1 million employees with your program. You're like the McDonald's of work-life balance. You reach so many people. And so what are you hearing from employees in terms of the benefits and policies companies are offering? And what are your recommendations to business owners in terms of changes or enhancements they should be considering today?
So basically answer my entire life work in 2 minutes. So we'll go for that.
Yes. And
so it's so incredibly cool to be part of this, right? So 30 years ago, I got divorced. I had a 5, 6, and 8-year-old. And I figured there must be other people in my situation. And so it's interesting because if you fast forward 30 years, this conversation, and Larry gave us permission to sort of nicely say, oh, well, I have a different perspective on things. And so what we really believe in is at the root cause is education and preventative. So work-life balance is not something that we innately know. We don't even know what it is. That's one of the reasons that we have a trademark class. We have to learn, and we have research science. We know what work-life balance is, and we know the answer. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that a vacation is going to solve work-life balance, or, going to a massage is going to solve work-life balance. We really need to root cause what is going on. So we have to teach what is the answer. How do we learn work-life balance? I wish we taught that to kindergartners. And by the way, they do in other cultures. I've had the pleasure of seeing this all over the world and realize we need to teach our children at a young age what does a robust life look like? How do we learn work-life balance? So, I thought Jamie made such a great point about, the weight loss and the incredible complexity. Well, are we teaching healthy eating? Are we teaching how not to get to that place? Are we sharing in when we buy pet insurance? Are we teaching how to care for our pets? Are we teaching them about tick prevention so that, yeah, they'll have the pet insurance? So I think one of the things that's important, and it's why my company now has over 500 topics, each employee needs to learn, just like maybe you went to high school or college, you got a course catalog. Companies really need to continue teaching skill sets so that we can be successful today.
Hey, Larry, can I make a comment on that?
Sure, absolutely.
Wendy, I love what you shared about this concept of employees needing to learn, around work-life balance. And if we could start teaching it in kindergarten, and I have young kids, and I see, my older, who's 14, she's so locked into the work that she does that I often have to tell her, hey, you need to take a break, which worries me that she is creating this setup for her career in working. But there's, to me, from my perspective, as I look out across the organization, there's an added element that I think makes the work-life balance conversation even harder, is the concept of trust. And so what I'm finding is employees grasp it more than those that are higher up in the food chain in terms of management, and where trust becomes a bit of the issue. And so that's where I would love to see more of the education, to say, how do we reframe those that are in the more senior levels, or the managers or the bosses that have to manage workforces that want to have a work-life balance and potentially, work from home and have remote, opportunities. I'm finding the struggle is in trust. How do we build and enable our managers to really have a more trusting mindset that this work from home or remote that came as a result of the pandemic is actually sustainable and really can work, and changing that mindset, which in some ways may go back to what Jamie said around generationals and how you were brought up in the workplace. And so
Yeah, but
a thought about that.
We made a lot of mistake about this multi-generational, right? Bank of America did a huge, shocking, that found that the millennials have way more money than we thought and had way more career goals. And so I think we need to really look at, you're going to define trust at ENT maybe differently than another company would. But if I go into your organization and I say, okay, show me your definitions of trust within your organization, you say, well, I've had this class and we all agree, just like in a family, right? My kids know when they go on a trip, they got to text me when they leave and they got to text me when they come back, because that's how I define, I'm going to trust you to, go fly the coop. So I think it's really clear about, what has your organization done to define trust within that organization? What does it mean? In my organization, it can be like, they'll be at wherever on the store, but they're answering their phone and they're returning their emails.
Tanika, you
I think, I think that all of us here on the panel, I believe we're all pretty much probably in the same age group, right? So this work-life balance is actually new to us, right? We knew work, right? So now we have this, these succeeding generations that's coming in and they're saying work-life balance. So we're trying to figure it out. Just being in HR, I think it has to start somewhere, right? So it's about engagement and communication. And you have to start off with that. And who your workers are, who they are as people, so once you build those relationships with people, then that should follow, trust should just, be a part of that scheme, if I may. Because I don't think that there's going to be a playbook in terms of what we're going to design as far as trust goes. I think that, for example, I have to say I've been at my firm almost, I think 19, or I'm going on 20 years. And much like ENT, Cuddy and Fader has a lot of longevity in its employees. And I have to say that we trust our people. So when there is an issue with someone in particular, where trust is compromised, then we need to have that conversation, right? So that they can understand that being a part of the organization is to their benefit, and they have to prove to us just as much as we have to prove to them. So that's where we start, right? Because it's really different for us. The work-life balance thing is really, it's wonderful to hear. And I certainly, learned following the pandemic how I didn't spend a lot of time with my children as I was raising them and working and going to school. And now I'm saying, wow, work-life balance, like I'm tilting my head. What does that mean exactly? But now I understand that it's important for me to I have to speak to people. So sometimes when we come back and we say, listen, I can't find that that associate or that assistant or whomever. All right, well, then it's time for us to sit down and have a conversation to make sure that we're clear on what our expectations are, and make sure that we also understand kind of like what their expectations are, so that we can build and foster that relationship. I think
Yes,
that's
because
important.
and trust, and thank you, Tanika. I mean, trust is a very interesting word, because you earn trust, and we're talking about attraction, retention, and cultivation. There are pieces of that, which is during the attraction process, you're talking about benefits. Let's look through the lens of benefits as an attraction tool, and you're saying trust in the fact that we're offering you a comprehensive set of benefits, but not set in stone, that we're not going to be flexible enough. It's a retention tool when you talk about trust, which is you build that trust over time. It allows you to retain employees, and certainly cultivation. You're building that community and you're cultivating employees because you trust that if you invest in them through education, as Jason was talking about, that you're going to be able to cultivate those employees. The other thing I'll say is, it's specific to work-life balance. It's interesting is, I didn't understand work-life balance until I took my first business trip to Europe. And then in walking in different countries of Europe, and I'd say, does anybody work in this country? No matter what country I was in, I'd say, and that's where I learned about it, because then you would talk to executives and they say, well, I get 8 weeks vacation, and they're like, well, how many weeks do you get in America? And I'm like, well, I just got 2 weeks. So, I think over time, certainly access, social media, technology has brought even the youngest worker a greater view of the world and how people live their lives around the world. And I think this all ultimately rolls into the trends that are the trend lines that are changing. Even pre-pandemic, the trend lines are changing. And I know, Jamie, this is this is what you do for a living. I mean, obviously everybody on this panel does this for a living, but certainly you are the counselor to the outside counselor to companies and organizations. So looking into your crystal ball, I mean, what does a future look like in terms of the types of benefits that are going to be offered to employees? And so what are the coming trends over the next decade?
Yeah, thanks, Larry. And I just want to circle back to one comment Jason and Tanika made about having a robust benefits package. And I also encourage my clients that have the ability to offer a robust benefit package to share with their employees a total compensation statement, because generally what employees see is their paycheck, right? They see what their what their wages are for the pay period, how much is taken out in taxes. They'll see what's deducted for their benefits, but they actually never see what the employer is investing in dollars into their benefits package. So employee total compensation statements are a way for an employer to show their employees, well, look, your salary is X, but we're paying all these other costs in benefits. And it's not just medical, dental, vision, but, Jason mentioned about, educational tools, PTO, things of that nature. So then you create a full picture of what is the full value dollar wise for me being in this seat. So definitely encourage the uses of that. But in terms of trends, I think Wendy talked about, education around outside of just benefits. But, another statistic I learned recently at a data analytics conference I was at is that 20% of chronic disease is genetics. So, okay, that means 80% is based on lifestyle choices that we make, foods that we eat, lifestyles we live. We talk about the work-life balance, about, maybe not getting enough sleep. So, I think in my crystal ball, over the next decade or so, where employers are really gonna, and I guess maybe there's a debate is should employers be that involved in an employee's life? But if you're have access to them and you could educate them, then you start there, right? Take little bits and pieces. So Wendy had mentioned about nutritional programs. So I think, employers will try to educate more around trying to change the trend of lifestyle and change that 80%, right? Early detection is great. So we talk about preventive care and getting mammograms and colonoscopies, but again, going back to that 80% is lifestyles. How do you impact that? So, the early prevention is still important, but these are all preventable. So that's one. Another is getting kind of a little technical, but health, high deductible health plans. HSA plans have kind of gotten a mixed reviews. Is it just pushing more cost onto employees, saying, well, now you have a high deductible and it's just going to cost you more? But I think if you kind of build in a health savings account, so you help employees. So again, it goes back to like trying to find those dollars in savings to build in, but you give the employees the access, but they need tools, right? They need transparency. What do things cost? Healthcare is one of the things that you don't find out the cost until after you access. So, being able to put out transparency tools and help employers make, educated decisions on accessing healthcare. And then the last comment I'll make is, point solutions is what we refer to are targeted companies that are coming to the market that address specific needs. So we talked about mental health. We talked about infertility. Now we're starting to see MSK, musculoskeletal disease, that changed from orthopedics. So it took me a while to understand what is MSK, but MSK and kind of attacking each one of those areas for employees and, helping them get a control over, having more access to these things, whether it's virtual, or in person. So, and the last thing I should mention is also the employee experience is, how are you going to enhance that? How are you going to educate and communicate all these things that you have available to them, where employees will then say, oh, okay, I didn't know I had access to that. I didn't know about this. I didn't know about that. So that's really important as well.
Thanks, Sue. Yeah, Wendy, I was just, it's funny because I was going to follow up with you. Is that align with what you're hearing out in the field?
Yeah, I think those are some great points. I think there's some other just we recently went through the B Corp process. And if you're not familiar with that, and do a shout out to Doug Singer, who's a BCW member who really helped us. Huge retention tool. And actually now it's been a huge sales tool for us. So the B Corp, if you go through the process, it holds the company responsible for the benefits, for the compensation, to make sure that you're beyond competitive. So I think that's a great measure to look at. I also think there's some things we can do that we're really encouraging. We always close for a week during the holiday season, and now we're closing for a week in July. So I know some of the questions came in about open PTO. I will tell you, one of the debates about open PTO is it's not that it can get abused, because we haven't really seen that, but there's a question about, does it stress other individuals within the organization, right? So how do we really make sure? And one of the ways we do that is by closing an organization. And I can say, while we're a small business, my clients, they're all Fortune 10. So I had to educate them why my little company, BLI, would be closing for this time and how we were going to make this work. So we get 2 full weeks that are closed. I think there's ways you can look at it that way. And the last one I just want to talk for a minute is, one of the things that we know that has made a huge difference is what are we doing and the why. And so giving people off for things like community volunteer days to make sure that they are literally plugging themselves back in. I always look forward every year to the Albany Day at BCW. I love getting involved in politics. Those who know me, that's a recharge for me. It makes me feel like I'm doing something. So making sure that we are very much, this idea of vacation always concerns me, because the studies are very clear. That's not the panacea. it's really filling our soul that work-life balance is. So the message is, or how are we contributing to making the world better? That's what makes us want to get up and go to work the next day.
Yes. Yeah. The sense of community. And I love that because, again, when we talk about retention, cultivation, attraction, it's about being attracted to a community. It's about cultivating a community. It's about retaining a community. And so if you look at your employee base as a community, all important, but, and this is the flip side of the coin, which, we are a business organization. So I want to make sure that we are cognizant of the fact that all of these benefits, there are costs associated with them, right? So we talk in the philosophical and we talk in the menu of options, but Jason, you oversee a fairly large size organization. So inflationary pressure, Jamie brought that up from the beginning, the rising costs, I'm sure it's having an adverse impact on your benefits program. And I can imagine for the owners of small businesses and nonprofits, that pressure is even greater. So, how do you balance this life issue, which is delivering a comprehensive and attractive benefits package, with the pressures of remaining a profitable business?
Yeah, it's one of the things that keep you up at night, I'll tell you that. But I appreciate the question. And look, as a leader in a large organization, I'm very well aware of the challenges that the inflationary pressures pose on our benefits program. But we are still committed to making sure that we are delivering a comprehensive and attractive program. But at the same time, we have to deal with the pressures of remaining a profitable business. It's a crossroads that is very challenging. As an HR leader, I take the H in the HR, the human part of that, extremely seriously, as I'm sure that as my panelists do as well. So when we're looking at the impact that's happening around us in industries and the economy and what that may be having on our bottom line, try to stay as focused as possible and guide our organization to remember that we're not in the commodity business, we're in the people business, right? And that translates all the way through into what we actually do, right, in terms of our patient care and our business. So there are a few strategies I think we've implemented and that we utilize to try to balance these pressures. And so the first is we regularly review and analyze our benefits programs. We're constantly evaluating them and taking a look at them to make sure that they are competitive, that they're aligned with industry standards, but most importantly, they align with the needs of our employees. We just completed our benefits survey for all of our staff, where we asked them really pointed questions. Tell us about your utilization of our programs. Tell us about your satisfaction of our programs. Tell us which ones are most important to you, because we want to be able to align the needs of our employees, because all of their individual needs are different, the needs of their families, as well as aligning with what we're trying to do with the organization. And so that's one step that we're really committed at, and we're constantly looking at to make sure that we do have the best possible benefits program. The second thing that we're trying to do, and that we have done quite successfully, is leverage technology and automation. So streamlining our administration process, streamlining our benefits programs in a way that reduces, actually improves all of our efficiency and ultimately help reduce some of the cost. And so we've been really successful in making sure that, things that used to be paper-based are no longer. I remember having come in one day and saw one of our junior folks really sitting behind a stack of paper. And I was like, I can't see your head. Like, what is going on here? And it just took me back like 25 years. I said, this can't be. We can't do it this way. This isn't going to work. Plus, with the way things are changing around us, there's got to be a better way. And so we really then focused on how are we going to make more automation, so then I can make sure that employee is then focused on more important work than flipping through papers. Thirdly, we work very closely with our benefit consultants. Folks like Jamie that we work with. We work very closely with our consultants and our partners to do a few things: negotiating favorable rates, constantly exploring ways that we have cost savings options, but with a lens to make sure that we're not compromising the integrity and the importance of the benefits that we do offer. So we're always looking for alternatives. And many of the things that Jamie mentioned are things that we have either tried to implement, have implemented, or seriously consider. And lastly, I think this goes to a point that Tanika mentioned, that we're really committed to communicating regularly with our employees. I think at E&T Analogy, we really pride ourselves on our transparency and the level of transparency we have with our employees. And that cuts right down to all of our benefit programs, because we want to make sure our employees understand the value of our programs, and what is available to them. What I find is there are a few moments that employees really pay attention to their benefits, right? It's when they first start, because they have to figure out, okay, what am I selecting? Then they're probably not going to really pay that close of attention until they get 1,000 emails saying it's open enrollment. And if you don't do something about it, you're going to lose your benefits, or something's going to happen drastic. And it's all those emails we send, so they cram it all in. And then the last, which is probably the most important, is when they're having some sort of life event, right? Maybe it's because they're having a child, or maybe, God forbid, there's a death in the family. That's when they really need to know most about their benefits. And so what we're really focused on is education and trying to keep the explanation of the benefits and what's available to them simple and understandable, right? For me and my family and my friends, I'm always that phone call when they're going through their benefits, whatever, and they're like, hey, Jake, deductibles, co-insurances, evidence of insurability, blah, 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 you name it. So I really make sure that we're committed to making the communications as understandable and easy to navigate across all levels of the organization. And so, you know, in balancing the need for this comprehensive benefits and attracting, having an attractive program and remain profitable, it really requires, a strategic and a holistic approach. So, those are some of the things that we're trying to do to balance. And get in touch with me in a few months. I'll let you know if it works.
Well, balancing, as I said, the words come up multiple times, balance, and you want to make sure, as I said, both sides of the coin, that both employer and employee both have a voice in this, because in trying to manage those costs, it is to the benefit of the employee when you properly manage those costs, and certainly the employer to properly manage those costs. And Jamie knows a lot about that and does a great job, certainly advising clients. And so bringing voice to individuals, I think, is, for really our pretty much our last question of this great discussion is, Tanika, I know you've spoken very passionately in the past about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, that those letters DEI is a far bigger part of the conversation. In a way, it is a right, not a benefit, even though we're talking about a benefit discussion. But I wonder if you could talk just 2 minutes, or so we can get to a question or two from folks out there in the chat. But DEI, how are you infusing that into benefits and policies at Cuddy and Fader?
Yeah, thanks, Larry. Well, first off, an organization's commitment to DEI demonstrates its welcoming and support of all aspects of human difference. By committing to being a diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforce, we are promoting an environment where all members of diverse backgrounds are welcomed and respected. By infusing benefit strategies and implementing policies that address the needs of various circumstances, will not only build but foster a workforce community of trust, which will drive reciprocal response and contribute to organizational success. As workforce demographics change, employee benefits are evolving to offer more choice, personalization, and support for employees at career and life stages, much of what we have discussed here today. Multi-generational differences provide a landscape that support a strategic focus on employee needs for attracting and retaining talent. It's important to recognize that it isn't a one-size-fits-all. And much of what Jason has been articulating, and Jamie, it's really about people and sitting down and spending the time to focus on what the needs of our people, the needs of our people, just what is it that people are seeking, and how we can build that into our benefit plans. And that's we take pride in that as well, and we spend considerable time and doing that year over year. I've had the pleasure of sitting down with Jamie as well, and kind of drilling his head, like, well, what could we do, and tell me more, and let's learn. And it's actually, it's fascinating. It's tiring, but it's also just quite interesting in terms of what solutions you can come up with, right, to bring to the day to the table, and bring back to the principals and say, okay, now let's sit together and let's talk about this. Because as HR, we're in touch with people every day. They come into our offices, they sit, they tell us, sometimes they tell us things that are very personal, right? But we're able to take that information and bring it back to our center and say, hey, listen, I know that there's some people who are struggling with this. I know some people are struggling with that. Why are our costs up? What does our census look like, right? It enables us to come up with solutions that can support the workforce, whether they're in the workforce already or coming into the workforce. Because, I also look for that as well when I recruit.
Yeah, I was writing down while I was listening to what you were saying. And the one word I centered in on that you've said over and over, which is very important, is people. That's the key word. It's people. Seeing your employees as people. That's what benefits discussion is about realizing that your employees are people, and looking at people holistically and what their needs are. And certainly DEI is part of that. And as you also mentioned, HR personnel, my experience have worked with many HR professionals over the years throughout my career. They have to be priest, rabbi, marriage counselor, talking about proms, talking about births, deaths, the holistic, as I said, the 360 conversation. And certainly many of Wendy's clients turn to her for help and seeing people in that 360 view. So it's so critical to see your employees as people. And I think that's a great point. I just want to, before we wrap this up, get to some of the comments in the chat. And one of the things I love is, I struggle with this certainly when I hear it with my working age kids. Conceptually, the idea of unlimited time off, PTO that never ends. When I started my career, that used to be called being fired, when you had unlimited time off. So if I could just get a 10-second, 20-second from each of you about the concept of unlimited time off, because that is a very heady concept for many of us to get our heads around. So any comments about that from anybody on the panel?
I could talk about it from an insurance perspective, obviously. And the HR role, I have the utmost respect for you, Tanika and Jason, of course, Wendy. But I always tell, the folks I work with, like, you should keep a diary, and then when you retire, you could write a book, because the stories you hear, and and people that are coming to you, I mean, you're kind of like the rock behind the organization. So I appreciate all the work that you do, and hopefully your employees appreciate it as well. But with the one area where I kind of ran into a little bit of a snafu with unlimited PTO is, at what point, like, let's say someone is out legitimately for an illness or an injury, and then you have to dovetail into a disability claim, or potentially if it's long term, a termination. So it kind of gets a little messy. I would leave that question to the HR professionals. But just one instance that I got kind of roped into, where there was an unlimited PTO, was like, kind of, where do you draw the line of, okay, this is now officially a disability, to file a disability claim, and then take it from there. But that's my only involvement with unlimited PTO.
Anybody else comment on unlimited PTO?
We haven't really ever seen it work, because the assumption about unlimited PTO is that you don't want to be at work.
Really?
And that's the message.
Really.
We're trying to create worlds where people want to go to work. So the idea of unlimited PTO says to me, there's really a problem in an organization. I know most of the clients I have restructured it to talk about meaningful PTO, learning how to take PTO. I think the unlimited PTO is really just, it's the idea you can eat all your cake and never, have a problem. It's just not true.
Yeah, and Wendy, to your point, what I've heard, because I have not in any of the organizations that I've been in had unlimited PTO, but what I've heard is it often becomes the opposite of what you're trying to do, right? You're offering all this free time, but then folks don't actually use it. That there's this, then you have to have a different push. And so what my take has always been, I think also as it comes to designing just your general benefit plan, is it really is unique to the organization you're in, the culture you're in, the industry and the service model you're in. I think as you figure out what your PTO plan might be, your policy might be, as it will be with your benefits, I think you just have to examine like what is really sustainable for the model that you're in, and bigger picture, like what is it that you're exactly trying to accomplish? And will a unlimited PTO, I think for some businesses, it probably will work fabulously. I think for others, it could become a disaster, So I think you just have to really get to the core of what you're trying to accomplish, and then decide that that's really gonna, work for you.
I agree.
And I think we'll end it there. And anybody watching this conversation should really key into the fact that every one of these panelists has offered some phenomenal insights. And again, it is about dealing with people. Businesses, organizations are being asked to take on, whether they see it as a burden or maybe a gift, to be more involved in people's lives and realize that work-life balance is so critical, and what role benefits can play in that is quite important. And so, conversation was, I believe, very helpful, certainly helpful to me to get all those insights. I want to thank Tanika, Wendy, Jamie, Jason for sharing with us their knowledge and experience this morning. Just fantastic conversation. I want to thank again today's sponsors, Simone Development, Vail Industries, Westchester County Office of Economic Development, and Balancing Life's Issues. After each panel discussion, we go beyond the panel with a podcast that is made available in the coming days and as an extension of this morning's conversation, as well as a replay of today's broadcast. Thank you to Wendy Woolner of Balancing Life's Issues and her team for producing those great ongoing podcast series. If you have not heard them, please, I strongly encourage you to, because they are great continuing conversations. If you haven't listened to them, you don't know what you're missing, and they're fantastic. So thank you to Wendy and Kai, who does the production for her. If you or somebody you know is searching for a job, go to westchesterwantsyou.com to register on the BCW's Talent Attraction web portal. Our next Talent Tuesday is coming up on May 30th, diving headfirst into new relationships, the untapped potential of leaping into a larger labor pool. We'll discuss the success employers can achieve in finding new talent when they widen their search to include previously untapped labor sources. I don't want to give you the answers now. You have to come back on the 30th to find out what that means. Thank you for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your Talent Tuesday. Thank you all.
Have a great
Thank you,
day.
Larry.
All right, thank you.